Robert Mackey of The Intercept has quite a story about politics in the Netherlands right now. He explains how Geert Wilders, who, by the way, his name is spelled Geert, but I think it's Geert, and Wilders is how I hear people pronounce it, but it's spelled Wilders. So I don't know. Maybe I'm pronouncing it right. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. I used to say Geert Wilders, but Geert Wilders is how I hear people pronounce it, so whatever. But he explains how Geert Wilders, who is a far-right politician, was up on trial for hate speech, and he was found guilty. So apparently he led a chant where he said, we want, quote, fewer Moroccan immigrants, not more. And I'm going to come back to that in a second, but let me give you more of the information here so you get the full picture. The Intercept explains, hours after a court in the Netherlands found the far-right politician Geert Wilders guilty of breaching anti-discrimination laws by railing against Moroccan immigrants at a rally, a poll found that 53% of the country opposed the ruling. Wilders, an extreme nationalist obsessed with the supposed threat to Dutch identity from Islam, promises to shut the nation's borders to Muslim immigrants, ban the Quran, close all mosques, and hold a referendum on leaving the European Union if he becomes prime minister. They continue. They say, his Party for Freedom, known by the Dutch acronym PVV, currently leads in the polls ahead of a general election in March, thanks in part to a surge in support during his trial. Following the guilty verdict, which came with no penalty, more than two-thirds of those surveyed told the Dutch pollster Maurice de Hond they expected the ruling to result in the Party for Freedom winning more seats in the next parliament, and polls even show now that his party might end up with the most seats in Dutch parliament. So, what happened here is you had this court acting in authoritarian leftist way, and as a result of that, you just made the right-wingers way more popular. And you made them more popular because, you're kind of persecuting them. They'll argue, oh, you're persecuting the Moroccan immigrants. But all he did was chant, we want fewer of them in the country. Now, if that's illegal to chant that, then isn't it illegal to have a conservative opinion on immigration? Now, understand, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't. But I'm not going to lock people up for expressing conservative opinions on immigration. It's like if there was a rally and somebody in the U.S., I just got something in my eye. I don't know if it's out. But anyway, it's like if somebody in the U.S. Led a chant, we want fewer Mexican immigrants, or fewer South American immigrants, or something like that. I don't necessarily agree with that, but am I going to lock them up for chanting that? No. Am I going to lock somebody up for having the opinion that, hey, I want to shut down the borders? No. I'm not going to. I mean, it's like actually crazy to insist that they should get locked up, because then what you're saying is it's only legal to have one opinion on immigration. We want more immigration. Now, this is not to say that he's not a bigot. Based on comments he's made, I'm pretty comfortable calling him a bigot. Based on saying you should ban the Quran, so he says his Party for Freedom. That ain't freedom, motherfucker. That's not freedom. Freedom is, even if books are shitty, even if it's Mein Kampf or whatever, you allow it. So, I'm going to ban mosques and ban the Quran, but I'm for freedom. You're not for freedom. So I'm totally comfortable calling him an anti-Muslim bigot. But point is, just because he's an anti-Muslim bigot doesn't mean you find him guilty for hate speech for saying, hey, I want fewer immigrants in the country. So, and look, this is a problem. When you try to control people to this extent and basically ban unpopular opinions or conservative opinions, you're going to find a giant increase in the popularity of those opinions. Because there's this innate human thing where people will go, hey, you know what, man? Fuck you. Fuck you. Even if I don't agree with that person, fuck you, I'm standing in solidarity with them, because you just found them guilty of a crime for disagreeing with you. And you just found them guilty of a crime for having shitty beliefs. Where does it stop? Should we find everybody guilty in the South who's racist? Everybody who's ever flown a Confederate flag? Should we, in a fucking legal court, Like, shame them. Oh, you're guilty of hate speech because you have these bad opinions. No, it's called they have shitty opinions. You argue with them in the free marketplace of ideas, and since your ideas are better, you would win that argument. But they've gotten so lazy, the authoritarian left, they go, we're not even going to bother to have the argument. We're just going to ban what you're saying. We're just going to find you guilty of hate speech. Well, then don't be surprised when the other side gets more popular because you're not even bothering to make your case anymore. You're not even bothering to explain, like, oh, hey, look, here's the problem with this Geert character is, apart from the goofy peroxide hair, but he says he wants to ban mosques and ban the Quran as he says he's for freedom. Do you not see the contradiction there? Do you not see how that is stupid? Do you not see how, hey, maybe it is a bigoted thing to say all Muslims are the problem and all immigrants who are Muslim are an issue? That's not true. Sure, there's a percentage of them that are fundamentalists that are a giant issue and we need to address that. But to say, hey, they're all extremists, that's just not correct, and that is the definition of bigotry, so yes, you are a bigot. You can make that argument without saying court of law, found him guilty, censor him, because now you just made it much more likely he's going to be the next Dutch prime minister. And you have nobody to thank for that but yourself. Because he wouldn't have been this popular on his own. You're helping him. You're helping him by persecuting him, by oppressing him, by saying, I'm going to find you guilty in a court of law for saying shitty things. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And this goes for, left-wingers and right-wingers. Because I don't want to give the misimpression here that, like, the authoritarian left is, like, the only authoritarian movement. No, Geert Wilders is kind of authoritarian in his own right. To say, hey, I'm going to ban the Quran and ban mosques. That's as authoritarian as it gets. But like we discussed the other day, like in the rural southern parts of the U.S., they banned an atheist billboard that said, hey, don't go to church on Christmas, and they showed atheists celebrating Christmas. They banned it because they were offended. They were triggered. They needed a safe space. But they pulled that down. That you have people trying to fire people. Somebody made a joke about Trump fucking his daughter the other day. Politico fired her like that. We're speeding up our contract end with her because, we can't believe she said this. So I need people to stop policing speech with, you can disagree with anybody you want, obviously. But if you take it to a court of law and you find him guilty of hate speech, fuck you. Only direct threats of violence and things like that should be illegal. Other than that, you should be able to say whatever you want. And you could be wrong and you could be disgusting, and we'll argue against you, but you should be allowed to say it. And if you try to censor people, or ban people, or get people fired. That's where I have an issue. You can say whatever you want outside of that. But unfortunately, on the right and the left, we have these people taking it a step further now, where they go, oh, maybe I try to get you fired, or maybe I ban you, or maybe I censor you, or maybe I find you guilty of hate speech. Don't do that, because every time you do that, you're making them much stronger. Because you're saying, I don't want to engage those ideas. I want to shut those ideas down and not even allow the conversation, which makes people go naturally, hey, why are you trying to shut that down? And maybe there's something to talk about here. Let's go talk about that underground. Have it all out in the open place, in the open, free marketplace of ideas.